This happened about a week ago. I was trying to escape the city and find some inspiration as a wildlife photographer. I rented a cabin deep in the woods. It was a simple place, old and creaky, surrounded by tall pines. I thought the quiet would be good for me. I was wrong. The first day was peaceful. I set up my gear and took pictures of the lake. The sunlight broke through the trees, and I felt relaxed. The second night was calm as well. I cooked dinner and listened to the sounds of the forest. It was just me and the night. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe. Then came the third night. I woke up to scratching noises from the walls. At first, I thought it was just a raccoon or some critter. I tried to ignore it and go back to sleep, but the sounds kept getting louder. It was like something wanted in. My heart raced as I listened to the strange sounds. It couldn't just be my mind playing tricks, right? The next morning, I noticed something odd. My camera bag was moved closer to the door. I thought I was just forgetful, but it nagged at me. I could feel something was off, like all the trees were watching. That night, the scratching returned, even louder. It felt more aggressive. I sat up in bed, heart pounding. I thought about calling someone, but I didn't want to sound crazy. It could still be an animal outside, but deep down, I knew this felt different. As the week dragged on, I heard whispers outside. They sounded like voices floating through the trees, but I couldn't make sense of them. Shadows flickered at the edges of my vision. A heaviness filled the cabin, just hovering in the air. It felt like it was breathing, almost in sync with me. I wanted to leave, but I didn't want to admit I was scared. On the sixth night, I tried to convince myself that it was all in my head. I took my camera and snapped a photo outside to distract myself. But when I looked through the lens, I saw it, a figure standing among the trees. I blinked, and it was gone. That night, the scratching came again. Then I heard a voice, chilling and clear. It called my name. Mark. My heart felt like it stopped. I jumped out of bed, adrenaline hitting me hard. I opened the door, ready to confront whatever was out there. "Who's there?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. All I heard was silence. I scanned the woods, feeling the shadows pressing in around me. I should have left sooner. I shouldn't have come at all. Just then, I heard it again, the voice right next to me. Mark. The darkness held its breath. I didn't know what would happen next. I stood frozen, unsure if I should run or stay. What was waiting for me in the shadows? I felt a chill crawl up my spine as the voice echoed around me. My instincts screamed at me to retreat, but my feet remained rooted to the ground. The trees loomed, casting long shadows that flickered in the faint moonlight. I took a shaky breath and steadied myself. "Is anyone there?" I called out again, this time more forcefully. Silence surrounded me, thick and heavy. My pounding heart seemed to bounce off the tall pines, making the night feel alive. Just as I was about to step back inside, I noticed something glimmering on the ground. I bent down to pick it up. It was a small silver object, hard and cold. A key. I turned it over in my hand. It looked old-fashioned, with intricate designs engraved on its surface. But why was it here? I had never seen a key like this before, and it made no sense for it to be near the cabin. Suddenly, I heard a rustle behind me. I whipped around, heart racing. The air felt electric, charged with something I couldn't understand. The whispers returned, swirling around me like a dark mist. I had to get back inside. My pulse quickened as I stumbled backward to the door. Once inside, I locked it tight. The key felt heavy in my hand, and I shoved it into my pocket. I leaned against the door, breath coming fast as I tried to collect myself. The ambient noises of the forest faded, replaced by a deafening silence. I thought about what I had seen through my camera lens, about the figure lurking in the trees. Then, just as I was setting my camera aside, the scratching resumed. This time, it was followed by a low, guttural sound, like some animal struggling to breathe. It wasn't just on the walls anymore. It felt like it was coming from the floor beneath me. My palms were sweaty as I dropped my camera. It clattered to the floor, the noise breaking the stillness for just a moment. I crouched down to pick it up, my mind racing with thoughts of what to do. Should I leave? Call someone? Maybe the key was meant for something in here. I needed to know its purpose. I searched the cabin quickly, my hands trembling as I opened drawers and cabinets, looking for a lock it might fit. With every creak of the old wood, the scratching grew louder and more frantic. Then I saw it. A small, ornate box on a shelf in the corner, mostly obscured by dust. I approached cautiously. The box had a keyhole that seemed to fit my key perfectly. My heart pounded as I slotted it in, twisting it carefully. It clicked, and a wave of cold air rushed out as I lifted the lid. Inside, I found a collection of old photographs. My breath caught in my throat as I recognized the face of the figure from the trees. They were smiling in one photo, surrounded by a group of people, all standing in front of the very cabin I had rented. I froze. Why did this person look so familiar? That's when I heard it again, a whisper brushing against my ear. Mark. The darkness had returned, and it was closing in around me. The darkness felt alive, almost breathing. I clutched the box to my chest as I backed away from the corner, desperate for a source of light. The scratching intensified, a chaotic symphony of nails against wood. I couldn't tell if it was coming from outside or within the walls themselves. Mark, the voice repeated, each time laced with urgency. My mind raced. Who was saying my name? I forced myself to turn toward the window. An uneasy sense of dread washed over me as I peered through the grimy glass. Nothing but darkness stared back. Swallowing hard, I set the box down on a table and flipped through the photos again. As I studied the faces, something clicked. One of the people in the pictures looked exactly like me. It was unsettling. Could this cabin be connected to my past? I had never been here before, and yet the familiarity made me feel even more uneasy. I tossed the photographs back into the box, trying to shake off the sensation of being watched. It was just a trick of the mind, I told myself. Just shadows, just wind. But when another scratch echoed beneath me, I jumped, my heart in my throat. Then I heard it, a firm tap against the front door. My breath froze in my chest. Someone was outside. I stepped cautiously toward the door, gripping the doorknob, my pulse racing. I couldn't just leave it closed. I had to find out who was there. Taking a deep breath, I opened the door a crack. The moonlight poured in, illuminating the porch. I scanned the area but saw nothing. The trees shifted in the wind, shadows dancing, but no sign of life. I opened it wider, straining to hear any sounds above the rustling branches. Suddenly, the temperature dropped a few degrees, sending a shiver down my spine. I felt the air change, and the whisper returned, this time clearer. "Help me," it pleaded. Panic surged as I slammed the door shut, locking it tight again. Had I imagined it? I had to find help. I couldn't stay in this cabin any longer. I rushed to grab my phone, but cursed when I saw that the screen was cracked, the battery almost dead. With trembling hands, I reached for the old box on the table, a new wave of curiosity overcoming my fear. I opened it again, searching for more clues. As I dug deeper, I found something else. A folded piece of paper hidden beneath the photographs. Carefully, I unfolded it, my eyes scanning the hastily scrawled words. The key unlocks more than doors. It opens the past. Find the truth. My breath caught again. It wasn't just a note, it was a warning. I had to know what it meant. But as I held it closer, the scratching resumed with renewed fury, like something beneath the floorboards was desperate to escape. I stumbled back, heart racing. Whatever had been following me was here now. I wasn't alone. Then a loud crash erupted from the other side of the cabin. I jumped. Whatever it was trying to get in. That's when I realized the whispers had stopped, and something was coming through the shadows. I froze, the echo of the crash still resonating in my ears as the shadows thickened around the room. My heart thudded in my chest, and the promise of light from the moon faded in the corners of the cabin. I glanced at the box on the table, the note clutched in my palm like a lifeline, and I knew I had to do something. But what? I moved toward the small kitchen area, grabbing a rusted flashlight that leaned against the wall. I flicked it on, the beam cutting through the darkness, revealing more of the room. The floorboards creaked under my weight, a hesitant reminder that I wasn't alone. With each step, I felt the weight of the history pressing down on me. As I neared the door, I heard another crash, this time closer, like something had fallen in the next room. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the doorknob. Should I investigate or hide? The urge to flee warred with the need to find answers. I chose the latter. I pushed the door open slowly, the creak amplifying in the stillness. My flashlight illuminated the hallway, but the beam danced between shadowy corners, and I felt eyes on me, watching. I took a breath, steeling myself, and stepped through. The second room was dark, almost suffocating. I swept the flashlight from one corner to another, revealing stacks of old furniture draped in dusty sheets. As the light landed on a figure in the far corner, I nearly dropped the flashlight. It was a mirror, cracked and tarnished, reflecting not just my image, but a flicker of movement behind me. Whirling around, I found nothing. The shadows held their secrets close. Alone again, I turned back to the mirror, feeling drawn to it. Suddenly, a whisper broke the silence, soft and chilling. Mark. I backed away, my heart racing. That wasn't just in my head. It had called my name. I needed answers. The note! I fumbled for the paper still crumpled in my hand, but in my haste it slipped and floated to the floor. I dropped to retrieve it, my flashlight beam flickering. That's when I saw it. A glimmer of metal beneath the mirror's edge caught my attention. I leaned closer, hands shaking. It was a key. As my fingers brushed the cold metal, a low growl rumbled from somewhere deep within the walls, shaking the cabin around me. My breath caught, and I yanked my hand back, adrenaline surging. Every instinct screamed for me to leave, to escape the darkness that enveloped the cabin. But I felt tethered, like something was pulling me, tying me to this place. I had to find the truth. I couldn't just walk away now. But as I stood there, the growl grew louder, and I felt a presence looming behind me. I spun around, and the flashlight flickered once, then died completely, plunging me into total darkness. That's when I heard it. A voice, but not just any voice. It was familiar, almost like my own. "Help me." And just like that, everything shifted. The shadows surged forward, and I was truly not alone anymore. I stood frozen in complete darkness, heart pounding like thunder. The voice echoed in my ears, not just an illusion, it felt too real. My pulse quickened, and I fought the urge to scream. "Hello?" I whispered, my voice barely a breath. No response, just silence, thick enough to cut through. The sensation of eyes remained, pricking at the back of my neck. I grabbed for the walls, stumbling forward, trying to find my way back to the door. I still needed that key, but I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever I had disturbed was lurking just out of sight. Then I heard it again, a soft rustling sound. Panic flared within me.
Was it the shadows, or something else? My gut twisted with dread, yet I pressed onward, inching my way toward the door. Suddenly, a cold breeze swept through the room, like a breath wrapping around me. The hairs on my arms stood straight up. I turned back toward the mirror, instinctively feeling drawn to it. Something about it resonated with me. Maybe it held answers, or maybe it was the trap. No longer able to resist, I stepped back toward the mirror, doing my best to peer into the dim reflections. My own face stared back at me, but as I leaned closer, I saw something else behind me. It was a movement, a dark shape against the wall, creeping. I gasped and recoiled, but the shadow seemed to pause, as if it were watching me. In a rush of impulsivity, I took the risk. I darted past the mirror and reached blindly for the hidden key, grasping it hard in my palm. The growling intensified, vibrating against my bones, and I knew my time was running out. With a burst of courage, I dashed back across the room toward the door, wrenching it open. Just as I crossed the threshold, I felt a grip lock around my ankle. I stumbled, falling hard onto the floor. I glanced back, and in the dim light from beyond the door, I saw it, a grotesque face peering out from the edges of the darkness, eyes glowing with malice. It wasn't just a shadow, it was a form, thick, black, and writhing.
I scrambled backward, adrenaline surging. I had to face whatever this was. I couldn't let fear win. I clutched the key tighter, feeling its cold surface steadying my resolve. Then, in a single horrid motion, the shadow sprang toward me. My breath left my body, as I could hardly process what I was seeing. I quickly hitched myself back up and fled out of the room, shutting the door behind me. The growl morphed into a furious roar, reverberating through the cabin. I raced down the hallway, my only thoughts focused on finding a way out. But as I reached the front door, something cold and slick wrapped around my wrist. I screamed, feeling the shadow pulling me back into the darkness of the cabin. I threw my body against the door, the key slipping through my fingers as I struggled against the relentless grip. The door creaked, almost mocking me as I pulled harder. With every ounce of strength I had left, I pushed against the malevolent force. I had to break free. Then, in the chaos, I remembered the note, the one with the cryptic words that had brought me here in the first place. I had to understand what it meant. I needed to know the truth, not just for my sake, but for whatever spirit was tied to this place. "Help me," I whispered again, hoping this time it would resonate. But as I took another step, the door swung open, and I rushed into the night, the shadows howling behind me. Something important had awakened, and I knew it wouldn't stop until I found out what. The chill of the night air hit me like a wave as I stumbled outside. I took a moment to catch my breath, glancing back at the cabin. The shadows swirled, dark and alive, but I was free, at least for now. My heart raced, but my mind couldn't shake the feeling that the danger wasn't over yet. The key lay somewhere behind me, a reminder of the terror I had just escaped. I turned and sprinted toward the woods, hoping the deeper darkness would, somehow, protect me from whatever was lurking back there. I felt an urge to put as much distance between me and the cabin as possible. It was then that I remembered the note again. I fumbled in my pocket, pulling out the wrinkled paper. Its message was as cryptic as ever, and suddenly I was filled with a mix of dread and determination. As I ran, I recalled the specific phrase, "Find the source before the night claims you." What did that mean? Surely the source had to be in the cabin, in the mirror, or whatever I had felt pressing against me. But why did it want me? Breathing hard, I slowed down, trying to gather my thoughts. I stopped at a clearing, letting the trees envelop me in their silence. It felt safer, but the stillness was deceptive. The night hummed, familiar, but unsettling. I couldn't linger in this confusion. I had to return. I had to confront whatever had awoken. Before I could lose my resolve, I turned back and trotted toward the cabin. Each step felt heavier. Each rustle of leaves behind me felt like a promise of the unknown. I reached the door, momentarily pausing. What if the shadow was waiting? What if it had followed me? Taking a deep breath, I gripped the doorknob and twisted. The door creaked open, revealing the darkened interior. I stepped inside, heart pounding with fear, but driven by curiosity. The air felt thick, dense, as if it carried secrets fumbling about. I hesitated, taking a small step forward, just enough to catch the dim light filtering through windows. That's when I saw it. The mirror glinted in the moonlight, almost beckoning me closer. I advanced cautiously, every fiber of my being alert. But the moment I reached it, the air shifted. The shadows at the edges of the room seemed to flicker, racing toward me. I steadied myself, forcing my eyes to meet my reflection. Suddenly, they grew heavy and clouded, morphing into something more sinister. I blinked hard, and the figure behind me appeared again. That grotesque face, closer this time, looming out of the glass, its features sharp and distorted. I gasped, taking a step back. Before I could process what was happening, a hand emerged from the reflective surface, reaching toward me. It was cold, spectral, and I felt its pull deep within my chest. I tried to turn, but my feet felt rooted in place. "Help me," the reflection whispered, but the voice morphed into a sinister laugh. The gravity of the moment settled in. This was not an innocent spirit looking for closure. It wanted something from me, and it wouldn't stop until it got it. Suddenly, I remembered the key. I had dropped it on my first escape. In that moment of realization, I understood what the spirit sought. I couldn't run. I had to confront this darkness head on. Scrambling to find my footing, I dashed toward the shadowy figure at the mirror, determined to reclaim my fate before the night fully reclaimed me. The moment my foot hit the ground, I stumbled forward. The mirror flickered behind me like an angry eye, and the cold hand retreated slightly. It was a brief reprieve, but it made me all the more determined. I had to find that key. I dashed to the floor where I had last stood, feeling the rough wood beneath my fingers. Panic gripped me again. What if the hand came back while I was searching? I glanced back at the mirror. It felt alive, pulsating, waiting for my next move. I couldn't let it overwhelm me. I had faced it once, I could do it again. Finding the key felt like a fever dream. My fingers brushed against dust and debris. Nothing. Frustration clawed at me. I had to focus. Taking a deep breath, I ripped my gaze from the mirror, forcing myself back to the search. I crawled and scoured every corner, squinting into the faint light, but it was as if the cabin itself was conspiring against me, hiding the key. Then I heard it again, a whisper. "Help me," it echoed, but this time the voice sounded more desperate, more haunting. I froze, trying to decipher if the voice came from the mirror or my own fear. "Help me," it beckoned, and against my better judgment I turned back, locking eyes with the shadow creeping through the glass. What did it want from me? Was it my help it craved, or was it merely trying to lure me closer, to drag me into its dark, twisted world? The questions spun in my mind like a cyclone. I staggered back, lost in confusion, and then I caught something on the floor in the corner of my vision. A glint. I lunged, hands scraping against the wood, and there it was, the key. It lay half buried in a pile of leaves and dirt. I snatched it up, heart racing with a mix of relief and dread. But as I stood up, the atmosphere in the cabin shifted again. The shadows thickened, swirling like a storm. I could feel the temperature drop. The whisper turned into a low, mocking laughter.
The mirror quivered, the figure within it forming a darker shape, more distinct. I realized the strange entity was growing impatient. I glanced back at the key, my heart hammering wildly. I knew what I had to do. The note's message flashed through my mind. Find the source before the night claims you. This key wasn't just to a door. It felt heavier, imbued with the weight of secrets. Mustering what courage I had left, I stepped closer to the mirror. My reflection flickered, and the entity's eyes bore into me. "You will be mine," it hissed, and I sensed my own reflection smirking. The key squirmed in my palm. I couldn't let it win. With a swift motion, I pressed the key against the cold surface of the mirror, a chill shooting through my fingers. The room darkened. Shadows spun wildly as I tried to unlock whatever lay beyond. "What are you?" I shouted, the words tumbling out in defiance. Then everything went dark. The sharpness of reality slipped away, and I was suspended in a void. The whispers echoed more deeply, swirling around like smoke. I couldn't breathe. A frantic thought raced through my mind. Had I just made the worst mistake of my life? I gasped as the darkness clamped down around me. My lungs burned, and I struggled to find the surface of whatever this was. Panic flooded my chest like ice water. Had I truly vanished into the mirror? The whispers intensified, surrounding me, drowning out my thoughts. "Help me," they sighed again, but this time there were countless voices, each distinct yet overlapping, creating a dissonance that my head spun. I couldn't breathe. A frantic thought raced through my mind. Had I just made the worst mistake of my life? I gasped as the darkness clamped down around me. My lungs burned, and I struggled to find the surface of whatever this was. Panic flooded my chest like ice water. Had I truly vanished into the mirror? The whispers intensified, surrounding me, drowning out my thoughts. "Help me," they sighed again, but this time there were countless voices, each distinct yet overlapping, creating a dissonance that my head spun.
I reached out, hoping to grasp something, a wall, a hand, anything to anchor myself. Suddenly, I felt a pull, like a current dragging me. I tried to fight it, to gather my strength, but it was overpowering. The next moment, I tumbled through a blinding light, and I landed hard on the wooden floor of the cabin. I jolted upright, panting. The cabin was different now. Shadows crawled along the walls, writhing like worms under dark soil. The mirror was in front of me, slightly cracked, the glass reflecting a blurry version of my terrified face. But that wasn't all. The room was cluttered with objects, old toys, trinkets, and faded photographs. It felt wrong, like stepping into someone else's memories. Then, from the corner, I spotted something I hadn't noticed before. A picture frame lay crooked on the ground. I crawled over, heart racing, and picked it up. The image was of a family, 2 adults, a boy and a girl, their smiles frozen in time. The boy looked eerily like me, and chills crawled up my spine. It couldn't be a coincidence. As I set the frame down, a thunderous crack broke the silence, snapping me back to reality. I whipped my head toward the mirror. The figure within it was changing, morphing into distinct features, a face I could almost recognize. "Join us," it beckoned, a chilling smile forming, revealing sharp teeth. I stumbled back, the key still clutched in my hand. Was the entity trying to take me as well? It wanted me here, trapped among whatever this darkness consumed. "Stay away!" I screamed, backing into a wall. The room felt alive, a pulse thrumming in the air. I noticed the shadows moving closer, a thick mass feeding off my fear. I had to do something. I dashed to the mirror. The key felt warm against my palm now, alive, with a strange energy. I couldn't let this thing win. I raised the key again, ready to press it against the mirror. But before I could act, the glass rippled like water, distorting my reflection.
"You belong to us," the entity roared, its voice a symphony of the trapped souls surrounding me. That's when I saw it. At the bottom of the mirror's frame, carved into the wood, was a name. It didn't belong to me, or anyone I knew. But understanding washed over me. The boy in the photograph. He was more than just an image. He was tied to this place, to the madness that lurked here. Then the laughter returned, deep and echoing, accompanied by more shadows closing in. My heart raced as the edge of despair crept into my mind. What did I need to do to end this? Did I have to free them, or would that seal my fate? I couldn't wait any longer. I needed answers, and fast. The darkness lunged, and in a split second, I understood. I had to face whatever this entity was, or be consumed by it. With a deep
breath, I shouted the name engraved in the wood. The cabin trembled, and the air crackled with energy. "Please," I begged, not knowing if I spoke to the entity or the lost souls trapped here. And then, everything shifted again. The world swirled around me for an instant, then settled with a thud. I was back in the cabin, but surrounded by a dizzying array of memories, flickering before my eyes like ghosts. The air hummed, and I felt lighter, as if I'd been released from a tight grip. But that feeling quickly faded. In front of me, the mirror glimmered ominously. The cracks had grown, spiderwebbing across the surface, as if the glass itself felt the weight of whatever lay inside. I took a cautious step forward, my heart racing anew. Was something stirring behind the glass? "Help us," the whispers echoed again, now more urgent. I shut my eyes, fighting the urge to flee. The image of the family flickered in my mind, the boy's face, so familiar yet distant. I needed to understand who they were, but the dark presence loomed behind me, clawing at my resolve. I opened my eyes and looked around the room. My gaze landed on the clutter. Old toys that looked like they once belonged to a child, stuffed animals, and books with worn-out covers. I felt drawn to them. These items could hold the key to unraveling this mystery. I picked up a stuffed bear that lay forgotten. Its button eyes were dull, but I felt a strange warmth emanating from it. "What happened to you?" I whispered, almost expecting a reply. I shook my head at my own foolishness. This wasn't a game. Then I noticed something on the ground. A small, tattered book lay half hidden beneath a pile of dusty magazines. I reached for it, my fingers brushing against the brittle cover. The title read, "The Lost Chronicles." The weight of its significance pressed on me as I opened it carefully. The pages were filled with sketches and notes, some written in a hurried script, others carefully illustrated. A chill ran down my spine when I spotted a drawing resembling the mirror. Below it, someone had scrawled the name I'd shouted. The boy's name. My heart skipped. "Who were you?" I murmured, flipping to the next page. More drawings followed, but then I froze. There were images of the entity, too, twisted and dark, a depiction of something that transcended mere horror. It threw open the door to fears I barely understood. "Stay away, or it will take you," the frantic writing warned, each word etched with desperation. "Too late for that," I said, my voice trembling. The room responded with a soft flicker of light, as if acknowledging my fear. I needed to know more, about the boy, about the shadows. They were becoming restless. Suddenly, the mirror rattled violently, and a deep echo filled the cabin. "Join us!" the entity roared again, louder, more insistent. I could feel the shadows coiling, hungry. For my fear, oozing toward me like thick, dark smoke. I gripped the book tightly and backed away. "You won't have me," I shouted, though a part of me trembled with doubt. Just as I turned to flee, a chilling laughter erupted from the mirror, filling the cabin with despair. Then the shadows rushed in. They swarmed around me, snagging at my clothes, pulling me back toward the mirror. "Help me!" I cried, desperation clawing at my throat. I thrust the book toward the mirror, hoping it would be enough to keep me safe. But the darkness didn't relent. It surged forward, and I was left with one terrible thought. I needed a way to confront the fractured existence in the mirror, or else I might become yet another lost soul trapped in this relentless hunt for freedom. And that's when I heard a child's voice, soft but clear. "You must face it." I turned, startled, and found the shadows retreating just slightly, as if the child dared to stand between me and the darkness. Who was he, and what did he know? The child's voice echoed in my mind, mixing with the cacophony of whispers around me. "You must face it." The phrase imbued me with a new sense of clarity, a sharpness breaking through the haze of despair. My heart raced, but I steadied myself. I didn't know who this voice belonged to, but it felt reassuring in the midst of the chaos. Desperation surged through me, and I found my voice. "What do you mean? How do I face it?" The shadows trembled, the air thickening with their frustration. I felt their grips loosen slightly, a brief opportunity. "Accept what you see," the child urged. There was no malice in his voice, only a plea for understanding, as if he understood the weight of the history behind this mirror. Perhaps this was the key to breaking the cycle. I turned back to the mirror, meeting the garled reflection of the dark figure with resolve. The grotesque face snarled, eyes burning with hunger. "Join us," it repeated, drawing the shadows closer around me. But this time, I pushed against the wave of panic swelling in my chest. "No!" I shouted, clutching the book tighter. I sifted through the fragile pages, the weight of the past filling my mind. Images began to swirl before me, the boy, the family, the darkness that coiled around the cabin. "Be brave," the child urged softly, his form flickering at the edge of my vision, reassuring yet ephemeral like a fading dream. I took a deep breath and focused on that familiar face, the boy in the photo. "I'm here," I whispered, dialing down my fear. "I don't know you, but I will help." Something within the mirror shifted. A glimmer of light broke through the tainted surface, illuminating the shadows that had gripped me. I stepped closer, feeling the warmth in my chest. "I won't let you take me," I stated firmly, locking eyes with the dark figure. As I pushed the book against the mirror, the entity recoiled, its form flickering violently as if in pain. "You cannot change the past," it screeched, but I knew better than to let its words settle in my mind. I stared deeper at the reflection, challenging the darkness to show its true face. "Why are you here?" I demanded, my voice echoing in the stillness. Silence followed, thick and suffocating, but I stood my ground. The figure writhed, shadows curling and twisting, but slowly the face began to morph. The snarls became pained expressions, and I could almost hear the echo of sorrow amidst the anger. "Release us," it whispered, the plea distorted, but clear enough to surface from the depths. "You hold the key." A surge of understanding flooded over me. The key I had clenched all along. It wasn't just a physical object. It was a gateway to confronting their lost past, the remnants of lives tangled in misery. "You need to be set free," I murmured, eyes wide with sudden insight. "Find the truth," the child's voice echoed once more, "before it consumes you." Strengthened, I reclaimed my sense of purpose. I turned back to the mirror, knowing I had to confront the darkness directly. I could feel it still clawing at the edges of my being, but I tapped into that warmth deep inside, pulling forth the empathy I felt for the boy and his family captured within the void. "I will find the truth," I promised, my voice unwavering. "You won't be alone any longer."
With a firm grip, I pressed the key against the glass, feeling an energy pulse through it as I whispered those haunting names inscribed in my memories. The cracks began to weave more intensely, illuminating the mirror's frame, reflecting the essence of the family trapped within. The swirling darkness howled, and I could see fleeting images within the glass. Laughter, joy, love even, flashing through their sorrowful expressions. I pushed harder, igniting the desperation of their stories, all the moments stolen by fear. "You will be remembered," I declared. With a final thrust of energy, light exploded from the key, fracturing the mirror further, shattering the hold the darkness had over them. The shadows convulsed violently, swirling around like an angry storm as the cries transformed into a chorus of hope. Then I felt it, a release. The pressure that pressed against me vanished, replaced by an enlightening warmth that cascaded throughout the room. The figures began to change, transforming into silhouettes that shimmered, gathering together, their essence swirling harmoniously. "Thank you," they whispered, their collective voices ethereal yet serene. As the shadows dissipated, merging with the light, the cabin seemed to breathe anew. The whispers quelled, and the darkness that once threatened me began to recede. I took a deep breath, the air feeling lighter now, the cabin no longer feeling like a prison. But as a sense of calm washed over me, I couldn't shake the questions
that lingered in my mind. Had I truly freed them, or merely postponed something greater? I turned back to the remnants of the mirror, shards glimmering softly on the ground. It would never be the same, yet perhaps it was a chapter closed, one way of confronting the past. But for how long? I glanced out towards the open door, the night sky twinkling gently above me. As I stepped back outside, I felt a flicker of uncertainty, but also hope. I didn't have all the answers, and some pieces of this puzzle would remain forever out of reach. But I was no longer just a bystander, no longer running from my own fear. I stepped forward, embracing the unknown, ready for whatever awaited me in the world beyond.